Hi, it's me. Welcome to Makeup by the Numbers. I am going to do a first kind of video for me, but one that I absolutely love watching, and that's a ranking video. So today I am going to rank all my Nomad Cosmetics palettes. Now I've been collecting almost all their launches, so I have all but a few of them. I don't have those large bifold ones just because the color stories aren't unified for me. They didn't appeal for me. It wasn't worth the extra money. But going back to all but their first couple of launches, I've got 18 of their palettes. So this is going to be fun and exciting, and without further ado, let's get started. So coming in at number 19 is going to be the Santa's Village palette. So the way I assessed these and kind of ranking them was I didn't want to go just by color story or just by usage because that doesn't really translate person to person. So I decided to stick with destination, formula, and originality. And I think in terms of that, it's a Christmas palette at a Christmas village with really, really hard panned highlighter shades. Now this is not their normal shimmer formula. It's actually a dual facial highlighter eyeshadow topper. And quite honestly, it's too much for the face, and you really, really have to press into them to make it work. You can make it work. I don't hate the palette, but I don't buy things that you can just make do with. I knew what I was getting into, so I'm not really mad at anybody about it, but I probably would not recommend this one, but it is discontinued since it was a limited edition. That being said, I really do love the mattes in it, and I think it's a great Christmas themed palette if you're going to get a Christmas themed palette. Next up is going to be the Encinitas palette, and I know this is just a little quad. But I'm not dinging it for that, really. I think where it hit me was the destination. Honestly, it's kind of boring. Like when you see this, do you think California? I see two browns. I don't know what you see. If you don't use this pop of blue, this palette really isn't exciting. And this pink shade just really disappears on my skin tone, on my face. So it's kind of a bummer palette. For that excitement, but I still actually grab this a lot because it is a great everyday neutral palette. And it is nice sometimes just to have a quick quad. Now they also have the Malibu palette, and the Malibu palette I'm ranking just a little bit higher because I really think this mint green is stunning, and it's really soft, and you can wear it every day, but you can leave it out. And then most importantly, Cabana is actually a shimmer, so it doesn't disappear as easily on the eye, and you can use it as a highlight or an all over the eye shimmer, and this palette's just a lot more versatile. Plus these grungy tones, these browns with a yellow base, are really in right now, so I can see myself getting a lot of use out of this palette, and I definitely have. So from here on, it started to get a lot more challenging just because there's a lot more variety and pretty equitable quality across the board. So choosing Cartagena was a bit of a challenge, you know, because you want to love them all. The formula is amazing. I love these really fun shimmers, like this yellow shimmer that just looks like sunshine and butter all in one. It's so pretty. I love it. It's fun to wear. And I don't see a lot of color stories like this, with this kind of like muted peaches and pinks that go into yellows and purples. But honestly, this doesn't feel like Cartagena to me. Like, I think of a very vibrant city with a lot of warm reds and yellows, and they went very soft and muted, and there's some very drab colors in here. So I thought it was really, really hard to rank it highly, especially when there just aren't a lot of pops of color that aren't shimmers and isn't like this one red. So it was really challenging to rank it highly. Plus there wasn't a lot to deepen. I think maybe if they had made this a 12 pan, it would have been a lot better received by me. But as it is, I like it. In fact, I love this palette, but I don't reach for it very, very often at all. In fact, I'd say I reach for it rarely. Next up, we have the Orient Express. Now this little velvet color, this cover is so fun. I love this blue. It's just an adorable palette. This was kind of a sleeper for me. I did not want to get it. I don't feel the destination in it at all still. There's better 1920s themed palettes. There's smaller 1920s themed palettes. It's not a unique idea at all. So the originality is not there. The destination's not there. The formula though is their same awesome quality, and I find myself reaching for this as a neutral palette a lot simply because you have a matte white and a shimmery white. You have pinks here, olive greens, you've got your neutrals here, warm and cool. Like, it's actually turned out to be an everyday palette for me, just ignoring those brighter pops of color, and then if I do want to jazz it up, they're there. The thing is though, I don't feel like the cohesion is there. I don't feel as if you could grab any 2 or 3 colors in this palette and just be amazed with the look that you achieve. So I just didn't rank it highly in that regard. I felt like the color story was just lacking the wow factor, but I do love this palette, and I'm glad I ended up getting it, even though I did almost sleep on it. So next is the Toscana palette. Now their Tuscany is a little bit smaller. It's only a 9-pan, but the fantastic thing about a 9-pan is every shimmer, every shade has a purpose. This light shade is amazing. It goes, you can deepen it up. You know, there's quite a bit of variation. You have some banana yellow colors, your reds, your browns. This feels like warm Tuscan sun to me. It's very well curated, and this aperitivo shade is a beautiful all over the lid shade for a one and done kind of spring or summer moment, and it's just so stunning. I think they nailed it. And for a neutral palette, I've never seen anything this perfect. They almost always avoid the red, pink, and yellow that this has in it without, and this doesn't come across as red, pink, and yellow. It's just those subtle undertones that make it work on so many people. So I love the Tuscany palettes. Next up is the Berlin Underground, or Berlin Untergrund. This got me started on a Nomad because it was sent out free, and it's great. I love it. You can feel that grungy discotheque Berlin nightclub feel, and they've done a great job with the curation. And I love their shimmer formula, and this palette is all but 2 shimmers. That being said, I think that's what keeps it from being an amazing palette for me, because there are only 2 mattes, NDW and Orienstrasse. Because these are the only 2 mattes, that can be a little limiting. Now, I can rock an all shimmer look, but I know most of you don't prefer all shimmer looks. So that's a little bit of a bummer. And as far as originality, I think we do have to admit that there are other grunge palettes which are also really cool. So I wasn't sure where to place this. Like, maybe if they had gone with a couple fewer pewter shades and a couple fewer gold shades, again, maybe that just perfectly curated palette where every shade had a purpose would have appealed to me more. But as it stands, this is just kind of one of their middle of the road palettes. That being said, when I say middle of the road for Nomad, I'm still meaning very, very amazingly good. Next up, I have Paradise Islands. Now, Paradise Islands for me is a pretty palette, and since I don't have their Antilles palette, it will have to do. But I don't feel the destination for me. It's just a tropical palette. As far as originality though, I do like it. It's nice to have a tropical palette that still has a little bit of purple, that dark green in there, you know, kind of your oranges and pinks. It's fun. I like the way they did it, and I think it's got a good balance of pastels and some midtones. Not a lot of dark tones though, and again, maybe you wouldn't expect that in the Paradise Islands, but I think it would have made the palette a lot more universal. Like, surely they could have had a deep blue in there, or a deep sunset color, something like that. A great mixture of mattes and shimmers. Again, they haven't curated this one enough to rank it really highly. Now, this is what that palette should have been. This is great. Just like the Toscana, every shade has a purpose. So we have yellows, greens, and blues. We have light to dark. We have amazing shimmers in 4 tones: green, aqua, blue, and gold. And it's just absolutely perfect. You know, I've never been to Lake Como. I don't know anything about it, but I want to go because this palette makes me feel like it must be absolutely stunning, because this palette is absolutely stunning. This is what the Paradise Islands should have been, you know, kind of the same way that Tuscany palette is the better curated version of the Cartagena, you could argue, with those warm sort of neutral shades. Speaking of neutral, I have the Okavango Savari palette, and a lot of you are going to hate me for this very unpopular opinion, but we've discussed their shimmer formula. We've discussed how good it is and how they do occasionally change it up. And this is one of those situations in which the pressing of the patterned shades, the three of them, the crocodile, tiger, and zebra print, is just a little bit firmer than a lot of people prefer. It's not a bad pressing, it's not messed up, it's not recallable. I don't hate it. You know, if it were not workable, it would be down there with Santa's Village, but they're totally workable. I just don't feel that it's their absolute best. But again, in terms of making you feel right at home I think it's in Botswana, and their creaminess of their mattes and all their other shimmers are on point. This is a really, really amazing neutral palette. And again, this palette is in right now with these greens and the yellow base and the warm based browns. This is really versatile, but it's still safe for a lot of people, and it's a great Nomad palette. And of course, you know, it's a little bit fun. I like this sort of fuzzy print. So phenomenal curation, just not my favorite. So moving on, and again, this one, I don't know if a lot of people like it. But this Tokyo palette is amazing. Again, it really makes you feel like you're in the Harajuku district. It's got buttery mattes, shimmery shimmers. Everything goes on amazing. And it's a really fun, high quality pastel palette. This is, maybe except for Natasha's Denona's pastel palette, this is probably the best quality pastels, that the pigment really shows up on your skin. But unlike her palette, there's enough neutrals in here, and there's a little bit wider variety of tone, where I think this palette might actually be a little bit more versatile. And of course, it's better on your pocketbook. So I know a lot of people don't lean for pastel palettes, but I do. And if you do, like me, this is a really, really good one to pick up. Again, pastel palettes aren't, you know, super original, but they are hard to formulate, and this one really nailed it. One of my favorites. Moving on to the Hudson Valley. You know, I criticized Berlin Underground for having too many shimmers. I feel like this one has too many mattes. I know you matte lovers are going to love it, but I want more than 3 shimmers. And I think the tones in this one, although they're great because they unify it, they can also be a little bit boring. You know, it's just light to dark, and, you know, 4 different colorways with the rows of shimmers in the middle. So it's hard for me to get on board. But that being said, I think we all know this color story is amazing. Like, even if you don't wear these colors, you look at the palette and you're like, that's pretty. It's not for me, but it's pretty. And that's how I feel. It feels like the Hudson Valley. It's definitely, you know, a case where you're drinking apple cider over an orchard, the sun's setting, it's fall, you've got your sweater on, like, beautiful, beautiful palette. I've never seen a fall palette curated quite like this. So mucho points for originality or formula and destination. This is absolutely one of their best palettes. So America's Parks is up next. And America's Parks is, I feel like it's the Hudson Valley, just, you know, a little bit better on steroids, because they've still got that top down story, but I think you can mix and match these shades a little bit better. And this row of shimmers, even though they're patterned, they're not terribly hard pressed. You don't have the issues that we had in the other ones. The story's so fun. And these are colors that, you know, I normally don't see together in a palette. So again, it's super original, super fun, and amazing quality. And it just barely eked out Hudson Valley. This is their Iceland theme palette, and they've also done an amazing job with this. You know, there's a lot of shimmers and some mattes, there's lights, there's darks, there's blues, and it just spreads a little bit to the green and purple for variety, and then you have that opposing pop of color. Like, this color story works. And it definitely follows under that sort of lava and polar ice cap thing. They've nailed Iceland. The formula is on point. I really particularly love these toppers. Well, I don't love the toppers, but they are different. They're not how I wear my makeup, but I love the fact that they're in here because, again, you know, it's about variety and versatility, and that adds to the palette. So I'm ranking this one very highly. I think my only complaint is that this formula for a color story works very well. Nomad has done it in some of their other palettes. Other brands have done it. It's a little bit predictable where you have a primary color and then just a little bit of the complementary color. But the individual shades in here are beautiful, and I couldn't be happier again with the palette. Coming in next is going to be the Bosque Nuboso de Monteverde, so the cloud forest, and it is a stunning palette. This is one of the bigger palettes that they do, and you know, a couple of them I said maybe they could have dropped a few shades. This one is just perfect. The right variety of light and dark. It's very green heavy, and all the colors in it are neons. It's the flowers peeking through the forest. So because of that, it doesn't feel like just another rainbow palette, but it's not a boring monochromatic palette. They've really done it perfectly, and they've captured the feel of animals and flowers and things peeking through this very lush rainforest. And there is no other palette on the market. It is so unique and so beautiful, and these shades, the shimmers, especially Cloud Canopy, the way it plays on your finger going from silver to green doesn't really look that way in the pan. Here's another one that's green, but it has pink in it. And these are really unique sort of shimmers that, you know, it's not just a green shimmer. It's really special. And this is for sure one of my favorites. We are finally down to the top three, and that's going to focus on Royal Europe. Now, I don't love the packaging. I know a lot of people do, but to me, anytime you use sort of laser cutting and it's just layered and it's just glued down, this paper just comes right up. Like you can destroy it super easily. I don't love that. It's not durable, and I don't want to get it wet, which is, you know, when it's by your bathroom, that's something that can happen. So not a fan of the packaging. Again, I know, super unpopular opinion, but you know, you can't just design things for aesthetics. That being said, opening it up, it's not designed just for aesthetics. It is very useful. They've done the columns and the color stories. I love that. You have a lighter shade, a darker shade, and then these rich duochromes. I'm not going to swatch every duochrome for you. There's videos on that, but they are amazing. It really does feel, because of those rich colors, that this is royalty. This is, you know, kind of Europe at its worst and its best, unfortunately, with some of the history of colonization. But they've brought out the beautiful part for sure. And this is their best shimmer formula for these duochromes. The creamy, buttery, pigmented, and they go on so easily. Absolutely gorgeous. They nail the color story. It's not my favorite though for two reasons. One is that I'm just missing a highlight shade, and some of these shades are really intense, being kind of difficult if you're not careful with the pigmentation on how easy they are to use, which is a very, very small minor thing to say that this palette is too highly pigmented. Almost, not even. It's not even a complaint. So it's not my favorite, but I am thrilled with this palette. And coming in next, I have Whistler Snow Lodge, and this one surprised me because it's not my most reached for palette. As you can see, there's a lot of shades in here that look untouched. They're not, but they look that way. But this is kind of, if I were to do a palette, very close to what I would do. I love the matte white, I love the matte shimmer, I love the black and the dark brown. It's blues, but it's got the green on one side, the purple on the other, and the pop of the opposing color. And I'm like, oh wait, this sounds like Fire and Ice, but it's not. It's just the better version of Fire and Ice, where it's the shimmers and the wintry feel that it gives you. I'm not wearing it today, but I probably could have gotten a very similar look. I'm wearing Ace Beauté's Oceanic palette, but I probably could have done very, very similar with this. But it's got their amazing formula and their amazing shimmers. And I've never seen, you know, kind of the pairing of the purple and the burnt orange with the gold and all the blues. Like, it's just, it is unique, and just a little bit more unique than I think a lot of companies are aiming for. They've followed the formula, but then they broke away from it, and I really like that. I love the destination formula originality. Like, there no complaints on this palette. And if you have no complaints on this palette, how can it not be number one? Well, it was really, really tough. And this one surprised me. I did not think Fête de Provence, sorry, French is one of the languages I don't speak. So sorry if I butchered that. But I did not think this would be my number one. It's just purples and yellows and pinks and oranges, and like kind of safe colors for me, because I love purples and pale pinks and oranges because I have very fair skin, so I wear these pastel shadows. They're very safe on me. But from a curation standpoint, it has pastels, it has shimmers, it has deepening shades, it has warm tones, it has cool tones, it has pink, purple, yellow, blues, grays. It's not all over the place. And I just feel like I'm walking through a lavender field in France, and I am seeing these colors, and it has this springtime, not quite out of winter bloom going on. It really captures the feeling of it, the look of it, the vibe of it. From a curation standpoint, I would change nothing. From a color standpoint, I would change nothing. From a formula standpoint, I would change nothing. And it really makes me feel like I'm at home. Every look I create with this is beautiful, and you don't have to stay in these columns. You don't have to do monochromatic looks. You could pick any 2 or 3 shades in this palette, and it would go with another shade. It is that perfectly curated. I have never seen this color story anywhere else. So for that, it got my number one. And that surprises me. I thought it was going to be the Royal Europe or the Cloud Forest one. I really thought it was going to be one of the more popular ones or a bigger one, but it's not. It's really, really perfect. So thank you for kind of listening to me ramble and like share my thoughts and what I'm looking for in a palette. You know, why do I spend my money on something? Because it has to create that sort of emotional draw in it. And then it has to be exciting enough. It's not going to be a palette that, you know, oh, well, this is launched by 6 different companies because it's the end season, because it's the end color palette this season. This line is why I like Nomad so much, is because you just can't beat the way that they make you feel, and the mission that they do when they give back to these places where they design their palettes is also absolutely amazing. And the genuine joy to work with these palettes. Y'all know I don't love drugstore. I really, really, really love these indie companies who are like, we can do it and we can do it better. That's super inspiring. And that's how I feel when I touch these palettes and I do my makeup. I feel confident, and I feel beautiful, and I feel inspired. So that's my number 1 through 18. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more of these, like and subscribe. I respond to every comment. This is just a hobby for me. I'm not in it to sort of get you to buy anything. Nomad did not pay me to make this video. I did it simply because I love the product, and it was going to be my first ranking video. But if there's more, again, let me know. Just remember, you know, it's not about what you wear or what you buy. Beauty is all about what's on the inside. So have a great day, and bye.